Hope you're ready for this.
Gonna be fun.
You will not stand in my way.
Frostborn, hunger. This pleases me.
I do not fear you, mortal.
Your soul shall be mine.
Don't make me laugh.
Needs a brew? Oh, I do. Feel a shredding, baby. Let the battle begin.
So hello and welcome to the 58th episode of the Nexus Trolls, a podcast all about Heroes of the Storm, part of the Trolls.gg Entertainment Network. So I'm your host, Linus Dazkilius, and I'm joined today, as always, by Mystic. How's it going, Mystic?
Hello, Daz. It's doing pretty good.
Have you started any of your placement matches yet?
Not yet. I kind of want to get them in, but then I heard about all this stuff with the performance system not working as intended.
Yes, and I've heard stories of a lot of people going through it. We've caught it a lot on Reddit, too. Ironically enough, our guest today, Rozai, or Roz, as I like to call him. I'm sure how you pronounce it typically. I just always call you Roz, though, Roz. He's going to be joining us today for the show, and he's gone through his placement matches, I understand. You've hit some kind of trouble along the way, haven't you?
Yeah, I like the system. I like the idea. I'm getting positive performance points, about 15 to 20 per game, but I have started the dreadful decline from Diamond 5 to Platinum 4, which is really depressing.
Yeah, now it's just after your placements too, right? And
yeah.
How did your placements go? Did you come up with a positive win rate, or even just like a neutral win rate? And you still drop that much?
It was neutral. Though my first placement games were with Gold 1s, where I had ended last season at Platinum 1. So I didn't really understand it. And that was kind of all of my placement games. I was just being mixed with all kinds of folks. And there was such a experiential gap between all the players that everybody just had a different idea of how to play the game. And so it was just really weird.
Yeah, so I guess it turns out so far performance-based matchmaking is like communism. It works in theory, but not necessarily in practice. Hopefully we've got a couple bugs they got to work out still. So in case anyone's wondering who Roz is a musical composer, arranger, and musical educator. He's actually got a bachelor's and master's degree in musical education. He's also the flex player and captain for the Chair League HOTS team, Lords of the X-Star, and he's also a writer for Trolls.gg. He's been writing guides. He did a Lucio guide recently, which has gotten some pretty good reviews, like people were talking about on Reddit quite a bit. And he's been doing this very popular Music of the Storm segment, which we're going to do like a little special series on, like tonight, actual segment on it later in the show too. So Roz, welcome to the show. I'm sorry your placement matches didn't go so well, but I'm glad to have you aboard.
Yeah, glad to be back.
And LiQuiud is having work issues again. Don't worry, he'll be back next week. But because that, actually, Troll and HGC is also going to be postponed by a day. So that's going to be filming live on Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So keep posted for that. But guys, we've got a great show today. We're going to be going over the news as per usual. We're going to be talking about what I've coined Heroes 2.1. A lot of people are saying Heroes 3.0. I actually said that on Bacon's stream the other day, and he was like, it's not 3.0. I was like, okay, well, maybe 2.1 then. So we'll be doing Heroes 2.1 first impressions. We're going to do a segment on Music of the Storm with Roz, as I mentioned before, and we're also going to be talking about how we think Hanzo should be changed. We're going to go over Roz's and Mystic's and my ideas on what we could do to change the hero to make him a little bit better, because he's had a bit of a lackluster entrance into the Nexus, to say the least. But before we start the show, we want to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/trollsgg. The show's always going to be free, but if you're looking for a way to support us, you can always do so there. And our troll of the week this week is Ganjagoon. Congrats, Ganjagoon. He hangs out in our chat channel on Discord quite frequently. He's participating in there too. Really friendly guy. Come into Discord, say hi, give him a little congrats for being troll of the week, because he definitely deserves it. Okay, well, that being said, everybody, let's start with the news. And my bumpers are not queued up as I'd hoped. I had some webcam issues, but we'll continue along here. So starting with the news, some news on the Trolls GG side of things. Creators of the Storm tournament, which we've been hyping quite a bit for January the 20th, has actually been postponed. We ran into some scheduling issues. I don't want to get into the details here, but keep posted. We're probably gonna be doing it maybe in February or March. We're still gonna be working on the dates, and we'll let you guys know as soon as possible. Stay tuned to our Trolls GG Twitter account to get more information on that. But on lighter news, Hanzo is now live. Have you guys had a chance to play him at all?
little bit.
What do you think,
Yeah, I
Roz?
played him somewhat.
He's okay. I mean, he's one of my favorite heroes from Overwatch. No shame. But he didn't really excite me when I saw his gameplay trailer, and I just don't think he's really transitioned in an exciting way to the Nexus. But I'm holding out hope.
It seems like everyone's kind of thinking the same thing too. It feels like one of the flattest hero releases for such a big name hero to come into the game too. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like Lunara's release. It was just kind of like, meh, you know, this Dryad coming in, but Lunara didn't have any kind of name behind her, whereas Hanzo is one of, you know, if not one of the most popular Overwatch heroes, at least like one of the more popular ones, right? So coming over here, you expect a little bit more fanfare. I guess we've known he's been coming for so long, it's just kind of the novelty's worn off. Mystic, what do you think about Hanzo?
I think as of right now, he's a little weak, and I agree that he hasn't had that much fanfare. The cinematic was really cool, but then when you get down into the hero itself, it's like, eh. So
yeah, well, we'll be talking about how we think we should change Hanzo, and maybe just cross our fingers Blizzard will listen and make some small tweaks, or maybe some big ones. Who knows? I guess we'll find out. I don't even know what Roz and Mystic are going to say in that segment, so we'll have to stay tuned for that one.
I will say, I just want to comment to what Wonder Raid was talking about in the chat, that I love the addition of, you can see the barriers on the on the terrain. As a Diablo player, that makes me really, really happy, because I hate charging people into a wall and you get like a slanted terrain hit and it doesn't really quite do the job. So I like that addition. I
hate to burst your bubble a little bit too, Roz. You're only going to see that, like the actual wireframe bits for Hanzo, Lucio, and Junkrat so far. So that's not actually going to be live for Diablo.
Well, I play a lot of Lucio. Maybe that's why I've been seeing it.
Exactly. And that's something that they talked about, I think, at BlizzCon, but they've been kind of quiet about that change coming in. But it did come live along with all these changes from the PTR. So we've got that along with other things too, which, I mean, we'll be going over a lot of the Heroes 2.1 stuff in a little bit, and we'll comment on that as we go. But it's a little bit more news first. We've got a Wintervale event. If you missed it last time, this is an annual event. We've got new skins, some old skins returning. Everything's kind of Christmas themed. So basically, this Wintervale event, if you play games and you win games in the Nexus, I'm not gonna go over the number, basically 5 to 8 games, you get the nostalgic reindeer spray, Wintervale Warbanner, red-nosed reindeer portrait, Arctic reindeer mount. And one thing I don't notice, maybe Russ, I think you played a lot of Warcraft, right? A lot of WoW. Do you know why they keep spelling reindeer like rain as in like a king's reign - deer instead of like the proper spelling for reindeer? I couldn't figure that out, and I was hoping that maybe you'd be able to clarify that. Is that like a Wintervale thing? Like, you know how they always have Wintervale instead of Christmas to try and keep it like a little bit agnostic? I was like, I don't know why they call it a reindeer. I thought maybe that was a WoW reference that I was missing.
I can't recall that they were spelled that way in World of Warcraft, but it's been a while, so
who knows? Maybe it's like the name LiQuid, and I'm so used to spelling it wrong now because I see it all the time. Maybe like, you know, just it was spelled that way in Warcraft. No one really noticed because they're so used to it. Looks like Reign of Chaos is the official title for Warcraft 3 is what Under Raid's saying. So maybe that's where the rain comes in then too. Okay, so we also have new loot that's being introduced as part of the Wintervale event, and like as mentioned before, some old stuff is returning. We've got Greatfather Winter Malfurion, Season's Reaping Malthael, Winter's Helper Vala, and Wintervale Kharazim. You guys gonna be crafting any of this stuff when you get your first chance, or have you already?
I love the Malthael skin. I want it now. The Vala skin's confusing because it's just like the Sylvanas
Sugar Plum one
from a few years ago.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of a strange call as well. It doesn't look as much like Vala on first glance as you'd expect. I've already having some problems between Vala and some Valyria skins are starting to kind of clash a little bit with like the veils and things they wear. But still, I mean, it's nice to get new stuff in the Nexus. So Malthael is the one that you're going to. Roz, Mystic, is there anything you're looking at? Maybe some Greatfather Winter Malth?
Yeah, that was actually one that I was really looking at. I'm trying to decide whether I should get it or not. I think it looks pretty cool, but my shards are limited, and I already crafted that Malthael skin that Roz was talking about. So,
well, if you haven't don't have the shards to craft for it, we do have a few weeks where you can hopefully get these in loot boxes. Any loot boxes that you get over the next few weeks are going to be automatically converted into Wintervale loot chests, and you'll have one guaranteed item in there that will be part of the Wintervale event. So, cross your fingers. You maybe can save those shards until the end and craft what you don't get. Roz, I'm surprised. I thought you were going to say something about the Wintervale Kerosene, because I know you're a big Kerosene fan.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. I guess that's just it. Eh? Some skins resonate with some people and some don't.
I've got like my one Karazim skin that I only use, and it's probably like that for the rest of the time.
Which one is it? I'm curious. I've got one Karazim skin I go to.
It is like the brown master skin from back when master skins were a thing, and then I'd use the legendary Hearthstone card mount. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, I love how like everyone kind of finds their niche with their skins and mounts for everything. I'm almost across the board. I use the Happy Cloud or Sad Cloud mounts depending on my mood, but that's like become my thing. And I always use a cheese spray too. Those are the two things that I tend to go towards. But we've also got some returning skins from previous Wintervale events as well. Wintervale Lunara, Ginger Dread Nazebo, which I know is very popular and a lot of people were sad that they missed on the boat on. I think I'm probably going to craft that one if I can. And Great Father Stitches as well. We've also got a Gingerbread mount and Iced Forge Reindeer mount. Again, odd spelling on reindeer, apparently Reign of Chaos throwback reference. So log into the Nexus, get all your new loot, and enjoy it while it lasts, because you only have a few weeks to get all that stuff. But as we were mentioning off the top, rank play placements are hella bugged right now. Roz has had some problems. He was getting placed, like his first placement in games, he was saying in low gold, where he started ended last season in diamond. Mystic, you said you haven't done any replacement games, but we've heard a lot on Reddit about like this coming out. And first it just seemed like it might have been a lot of stories, but where there's smoke there's fire, and Blizzard's actually come out and commented saying that there's something wrong with the placement system. They're looking into it. So if you're thinking about doing your placement matches, you might want to hold off until this is fixed, or you might get either demoted. I mean, you might be able to take advantage of it too. There's been stories of people jumping up significantly higher than they should have been. We're not sure why. It seems like the initial MMR seating is kind of skewed at the moment. So, Roz, I'm sorry. Are you hoping that maybe they'll bump you up as a result of this fix?
Refund. I mean, it just means I have to play more games and pub stomp my way up to diamond.
That's the way of looking at it, right? Nice and positive outlook. So as everyone knows, LiQuid's not here today, so we're not going to be talking about LiQuid's Esports Corner. If you're looking for more esports info, we're going to be having Trolling HGC tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or you can listen to the audio version on your regular podcatcher of choice. That being said, we're going to move into Heroes 2.1 First Impressions. We've talked about a lot of these things on the show over the past several episodes, ever since BlizzCon. However, now it's all actually live. So now we've got some real gameplay data. We can actually talk about what it's like in the actual live game. So just to really briefly talk about what happened, there was changes to stealth. There's performance-based MMR changes, which are causing some problems, and laning and minion changes. There's a big blog post about this. We'll have the link for that in the show notes, so you can check that out. I'm not going to go over everything. But there are a few things that we did miss talking about in previous shows, so I just wanted to bring them up. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit too. After last show, we had Ailbeer on the show, and he actually mentioned, he said, I'm surprised he didn't say anything about the boss spawns changing. I'm not sure if you guys knew about this, but in the PTR on Cursed Hollow or any other map, I guess Warhead Junction is probably the only one with 2 bosses, if one boss got captured, the other boss would despawn, so you could only ever have one active boss at a time. And people were talking about it on Reddit quite a bit, but that didn't seem to make it to live, and I'm not sure if there's an active PTR now because the PTR has come to live, but that didn't make it through to the game. Are you guys happy about that? I wasn't sure how I thought about having one boss at a time, because that changes a lot of strategy. What do you think, Roz?
I think the fewer drastic changes like that, the better. I mean, the timings alone have kind of thrown things into a weird tizzy right now, so I'm glad it's the same.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, I was in Blackheart's Bay a game today or yesterday, and you're so used to being like, hey, 50 seconds, the chest is going to spawn. But then everyone kind of clustered around the chest, and you could tell everyone was collectively realizing, oh yeah, that's right, things have changed. The chest won't actually spawn until whatever it is, 1 minute and 30 now. So you actually have more time to go clear that top lane, come back to the mid. It just changes all the timings now and how you play the game. Like even on Cursed Hollow too, you get like 30 seconds advance warning for those curses, the tributes spawning. So you can do stuff. You can clear the lane. You don't have to like run as fast as you can to report to the objective.
People still show up late. Don't worry about it.
Which is funny because all of us, when I was playing, we were showing up super early and be like twiddling your thumbs, sitting there in the bush waiting for people to come, and you're realizing, oh, you still got 20 seconds left before the stupid thing spawns. Yeah. So, Roz, you mentioned before that the unpathable terrain was a nice little change to be able to see that as Lucio, Junkrat, or Hanzo. But did you notice the mini map looks a little bit different recently?
Yeah, a little cleaner.
Yeah, a little cleaner. Like any of the unpathable areas are now fully shaded instead of just kind of wireframes. So it looks a little bit different, and there's I think some extra graphics too for the cores and such on the mini map as well. So that's been cleaned up a little bit and is now live. You might notice that. You might also notice that sprays are a bit bigger. So my cheese spray just got a little bit cheesier. Yeah, it's just like a little subtle change, but a noticeable one, especially considering that the camera is so much further out now. So what do you think about this, Roz? We talked about it last week, but I'm interested to get your opinion on it too. Destroying the gates and towers previously on the PTR a couple of weeks ago, if you destroyed the gate and the tower connecting it, the sidewall would also automatically be destroyed. They ended up saying, you know what, because of community feedback, we're going to revert this change. So they're not pushing that forward. And they talked about this at BlizzCon, and I think one of the developer Q&As saying, you know, that there was an issue with not being able to counterplay this because if it was your sidewall, you can't target it as, you know, that being a player on the team whose sidewall that is. So you couldn't destroy it as a tactical decision. Mm-hmm. So why do you think this is good? Do you think there's a reason that they put this back in? They're saying community feedback, but maybe it's just a case of too many changes is maybe a little bit too disruptive?
I was playing a game today, and I was fully expecting the wall to disappear, and it didn't. So I didn't even know that this didn't make it live until it happened. But I don't know. I was of the opinion that I was just kind of curious as to how it would change things, and I was kind of excited for change. I am of one of those people's opinions that because you as a defensive player can't do anything about that, that was actually good for you. But as far as, you know, playing Vala or Illidan, I know that that's something that they desperately needed to, you know, maintain hatred or used as a viable means of escape. So I think it's probably best that they kept that in.
Yeah, personally, as someone who likes to play Chen, the last thing I want to see is giving less utility to us Chen players, because he hasn't been in a good place in the Nexus in a while. Nova and Valera received some talent changes as well based on PTR feedback. We're not going to go into those. You can check those in the patch notes. There's some talent shuffle specifically for Nova. She got a little bit more than Valera, but Valera got a couple of changes as well. One interesting thing, though, Hammer received a buff. 5% health and regen buff, and 9% buff to basic attack damage. Maelstrom rounds at level 1, that was where you had the activatable button that you could press to increase auto attack damage for a certain period of time. Has had his bonus damage reduced. Hover Siege mode has his movement speed increased from 25% to 40%, which is fairly significant. And Shrapnel Mines at level 20, that's where you'd have an armor reduction if you hit one of Hammer's mines, has had his armor reduction duration increase from 3 to 4 seconds. I guess they want to make that level 20 a little bit more powerful. Mystic, we were talking last week about Hammer and how maybe she was a little undertuned. Is this bringing her into a place where she can be picked?
It definitely does make her stronger, but I don't know. Like with all this mobility that people have nowadays, they can get in and out basically with her getting off maybe one auto attack. So, I mean, Maelstrom rounds would be good for that, but I don't know. It kind of screams like shoot skill shots here still, and, you know, she can't really catch up to a lot of other heroes.
Yeah, one big thing we were saying is that they shifted so much of her power to siege mode, is that you felt like you had to get into that siege mode where you're vulnerable, whereas old hammer playstyle, you wouldn't want to siege up in a lot of situations because you would be in that vulnerable state. But looking over at Hot Slogs, I know it's not a lot of games yet, but her win rate's gone up about 12%. So it's a significant jump. Of course, this is from like just the last couple of days, so there's a lot going on and not a lot of hammer games. It looks like only about 60 games or so played, so that's definitely not statistically relevant, but it's better than her win rate going down. Roz, do you like hammer at all? I always stay away from hammer because I never really liked that play style, but how about you?
I've never really played her a whole lot. Every time I've played her, I enjoyed her, but
how do you like playing against her though? Because I'm sure you've played against her plenty.
Yeah. It's not been something that I haven't had issue dealing with. I know a lot of people don't like going Tracer into Hammer, but I like going Tracer into Hammer. I don't know. It's something that's always worked for me, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll have to see how she ends up shaking out from these buffs, but it seems like so far, they're doing her pretty well. There's a major Nazebo bug that was fixed. A lot of people were talking about this too. Basically, after you took Superstition, after dying, auto attacks wouldn't remove the effect. And for those of you that don't know what Superstition is, it gives you spell armor, but if someone auto attacked you, it would remove the effect essentially. So you'd kind of like lose that spell armor. So Nazebo is essentially having infinite like duration spell armor because of this bug, making him a lot more powerful in the game. So thank God they've removed that, because level 20 Nazebos are hard enough to deal with as is. I don't want to have to deal with one with like additional spell armor too. Okay, so I'm going to talk now just about some of the general changes and get everyone's opinions on them. We've talked about this again on some previous shows, but now we've had a little bit more data with the live game going live, and we got Roz here to talk to about too. I want to get some people's opinions. So Roz, what are your thoughts on the new stealth changes? Because that's one of the major things that's come out this patch. What do you think?
I like the shader. I think when the chaos is going on in a big team fight, unless you're of a higher level, you're still not going to be aware of the stealth characters sometimes. So there's still a little bit of an eye test, but I think there should be. I think that's part of the whole gameplay. The stealth heroes are certainly a lot stronger. Nova, especially in my placement games, was doing a lot of work. Saw a little bit of Valera, and I think I only had like one or two Zeratul games, but Nova especially, I think, benefited a lot from the changes.
Yeah, I thought for sure that they'd be a lot easier to see than they actually are. I mean, I played quite a few games in the PTR, and it was pretty obvious, but I feel like in all the PTR games, there's almost like 2 or 3 stealthies aside, just because everyone was trying out the new stealthies. But it's very easy in a team fight situation, like you're saying, to just lose track of that shimmer. I mean, the shimmer's easier to see now, but it's still not like a fully shaded hero, right? So you can still lose track of them, and they can still have that element of surprise. That being said, I did play a game as Nova, and it's really frustrating when people can see you a lot more frequently than they used to be able to, especially in like the laning phase. I feel like people are looking out for you a little bit more. You have to be a bit sneakier, but like you said, you do have a lot more power because they did shift that power to the stealth heroes to try and make up for this lack of stealthiness they've taken away with the new shaders. Mystic, have you had a chance to play any of the new stealth heroes since the game's gone live, or play against them, I guess?
Yeah, I think Valera is pretty strong now because of the silence that she got buffed. That 2.75 second silence is pretty killer on basically everybody. The Zeratul change, I mean, rewind at 10 basically is pretty good, and I think it'll continue to be very strong, and then it'll only be a little bit less strong when people learn how to play against it. That hey, he gets rewind at 10 now, basically, and he has a lot more jumps than he used to, like, at that level.
Yeah. Zeratul was always so high skill cap for me. I always strayed away from him. And this just makes him even that much harder to play, too, because the combo chain, it's getting like old school Mortal Kombat style. Like, you got to press about 30 buttons to get the whole chain off now. But Nova, she's seen quite the increase in win rate on Hot Slogs, too, and I mean, it was only a few weeks ago. If you saw a Nova picked on Hero League, you'd be laughing her to the bank, right? But now it's seeming like a strong pick. A little bit it's changed here over the past couple weeks. So, you know, I think my personal opinion, not only like matchmaking aside, the issues they're having with placements, I think I'd stay away from ranked play just because so much is changing right now. I feel like there's an opportunity potentially if you feel like you've got a better grasp on the changes than everybody else to take advantage of that, maybe do better in your placements than your average person. But it's almost like the Wild West right now with the meta, with just everyone trying to figure out the game. My personal opinion is I'm going to take a month, maybe even 2, to let everything settle into place before heading into Hero League and doing my placements. Like, Roz, you went head first into it, though. You've already completed your placements. Was this not a concern for you at all? You just thought you'd just
it actually was. In fact, I was originally going to go with your plan, but something told me that I should just hop in there. And then the more I lost, the more I just wanted to keep playing. So.
The little Blizzard devil over your shoulder, covered in gold, saying, "You'll see me in Gold League soon, Roz." Yeah, it was unfortunate, but like I said, you never know. I'm interested to see how Blizzard's going to fix this, if they're going to say, okay, we're just going to reset and everyone's going to start their placements over, or if they're going to do a sort of readjustment, or if they're just going to say, okay, anyone doing their placements from now on will be changed. But I guess we'll have to find out once that official response comes through. So laning and minion changes. How have you guys felt these have affected you? One thing we speculated upon is this really going to affect your sieging heroes, like your Zagaras and Asmodans of the world. They still seem to be doing fairly well in terms of win rate, and they don't seem that much weaker from what I've seen. What have you guys been seeing so far? Mystic, why don't we start with you?
Like I was saying on the past shows, the positioning that you want to kill the minions are slightly different, because you want to kill the wizard minions just a little bit closer, and I've been having to change my playstyle for that. And originally I'd want to kill minions really fast so that they would take less tower shots to kill, right? Because you want to save your tower shots. Now you don't really have to do that. You could just get them like all low instead of just like killing one really quick. And then, just having them die to one tower shot is fine because your towers have infinite ammo now. So there's that. And it's a lot more snowbally than it was before just because of those globe changes as well.
Yeah, speaking of the globe changes, being stuck in the solo lane, having twice as many globes potentially at your disposal feels really nice if you're winning the lane. It's almost like you can win it a little bit harder too, because you have that extra sustain coming from in terms of mana and health from both yours and the enemy's globe as well. That's one of the changes that I think I like the most. An interesting one that probably a lot of people have picked up on is there's no longer that delay between the game starting and the first minion wave starting. So the minions actually clash at center quicker than they used to. So this makes me wonder too, and I think I brought it up in a couple shows ago, how this is going to change that whole like 5-man in the middle, right? Because you got to get to those lanes faster now or you're going to miss XP. Is it just, Roz, what do you think? Is it a matter of everyone's still going to do that, just maybe leave that mid lane a little bit faster, do a little bit less of the dance? Or do you think people are going to start splitting the lanes like they used to a couple of years ago?
I think people are still going to do it for the strategic value of, like, once you go to mid, you can at least spread from there, because it's all about information, is the reason why we go there. Because you don't want to do a 3-1-1 or a 1-3-1 and then they have all 5 and then you get trashed. But I think what I would like to see is people stop going to the mid on the first engagement if there's a Kael'thas on the other team. Like, why would we just hand free stacks of convection? Like, you might as well just go ahead and get split. But I still think we'll see the all 5 mid for a while.
Yeah, changing the collective mindset for that is going to be difficult. But like you said, Roz, there's a lot of reasons not to go to mid. Like, if you've got an opponent on the other team that's trying to stack a quest that requires hero hits of some sort, it's probably to your advantage not to do that, right? A lot of games I'm in too, that dance in the middle takes so long that lanes of soak are missed too. It might be in everyone's best interest just to have people breaking off those side lanes a little bit quicker, holding off that 5-man with a 3-man maybe even too, and getting those extra couple lanes of soak, because as we all know, even an early kill is less valuable than missing a lane worth of soak. What do you think, Mystic? Is this going to change how things operate? Do you think people should take a closer look at that decision to 5-man stack in the middle?
I think because of the change for the minions going to the lanes faster, there can evolve a strategy where there's some counterplay to that now. So you don't have to go mid, like Roz said, especially if your opponent has quests or baseline quests that require stacking on an enemy hero. You could just sit back like with the 3, and then you can just send the other 2 or some 1-3-1 to the off lanes, and they can get that soak that much faster. And if your opponent doesn't do that, and you have like a really good wave clear hero in like the top lane, and then you just clear him really fast, like let's just say Azul, and he gets the minions there really quick, they might miss a couple minions.
And what about objective spawns? Because now we know well in advance where those objectives are going to come. A lot of maps did have somewhat predictable objectives. However, now they're all going to be telegraphed well in advance of the actual announcement even. So you've got maybe even a couple minutes to know, hey, that next tribute's going to be spawning on the top side of the map, or that tribute's going to be spawning on the bottom side of the map. How should you as a player adjust to this knowledge, knowing that, hey, the tribute's spawning in the top lane, I'm in the bottom lane? Like what typically do you think people should start doing now, Mystic, to adjust for this increased amount of knowledge?
I think now that you know where, like, let's just say the tribute is going to spawn, you know, hey, I should probably push out this wave, or I should get this camp, or this camp is not as valuable because, you know, the tribute is in this lane and, you know, it's in the same lane as the tribute. So just don't take that one and take the one on the opposite side of the map, and then you can get some value there. And it just means that overall, people can be more efficient with their mercenaries and wave pushes because they can put pressure in the lanes that need it, and then they can go down to the tribute, which is like, let's just say right next to a lane that they can defend along with defending the tribute.
That's one thing you see sometimes or don't see is players respecting mercenary camp timings. Because if you take a mercenary camp, and I think Cavalier Guest might have mentioned this too when he was on our show a couple months ago, if you take a mercenary camp just for the sake of taking a mercenary camp, you're not getting much value out of it. A mercenary camp should be taken to apply pressure during an objective phase so that it can go and make the other enemy team have to make a decision. If there's nothing to do on the map and there's a mercenary wave pushing down, it's a very easy decision for the enemy team to make. We'll go clear it and no harm done. However, if they've got a split from the objective, suddenly you've got now a 5v4, maybe a 5v3 at the objective. Things are becoming a lot different. So keeping an eye on those objectives, where they're spawning, and like Mystic said too, what camps are up and when, is much more crucial now than it ever was before, because a lot more of that guessing game has been removed from the game. What do you think about these changes, Roz? Do you like the fact that everything's announced so far in advance, or do you like the guessing game? Keep you on your toes.
I like it alongside with the adjustments of the timings. Mm-hmm. You know, camps starting at 1:30, and then a lot of the objectives starting at 3 minutes. I'll say two things. One, that you know, especially on maps like Cursed Hollow, there's no reason at this point for global heroes to not, you know, see where the, you know, the upcoming tribute is and just being in the opposite lane. Or if you're the opposite team, get that 200 IQ play and know that the global hero is going to be alone in that lane while the rest of the team is rotating, and you can catch them on the rotation. The other thing I would say is that the mechanical changes to the mercenary camps has added a lot of interesting, just a lot of weird adjustments. Like it's really hard to take the Hellbats, the Firebats, now as a solo person, because you get a 25 armor debuff. So you do kind of need some help, and it makes you really susceptible to a gank if you're trying to solo that, especially on like Braxis Holdout where it's so close to the lane. But the bruiser camps with the mages are super strong now if you escort them. If you clump up around them, get that also with like a siege camp. And if you protect the mage or even heal the mage with like Morales or something, you can keep a 30 spell armor buff for your team, which is bonkers. Yeah. You can go take down a keep if you've got, a 30 spell armor buff, because they actually have to get in there and auto attack the mage. They can't just poke it down from afar. So especially on Dragonshire, where you can get the mage camp in the bottom. I think that's going to be really strong if you can control that.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of game knowledge that people are going to have to relearn going through here, because also with some of the changes to the merc camps, you can now dodge any of the siege giants that are throwing their boulders at you if you're taking them. So theoretically, you can take no damage while taking like a siege giant camp, whereas other camps are now harder to take, and they're not like throwing projectiles, they're just automatically hitting you, kind of like an auto attack. So they're harder to take than they used to be too. So just having that knowledge of like, okay, I'm Greymane, what level can I safely take this camp? How low am I going to be afterwards? Are things you're going to have to readjust to, and things like, you know, making sure you take that wizard mercenary first out of the picture when you're defending or trying to take the camp in the first place are things that people are gonna have to figure out. And even on Curse Hollow too, like you said, the timings have changed. You can't go at 2 minutes to the merc camp, which is, you know, pretty much the known strategy. You go to your siege giants at the 2 minute mark, take them, so you've got pushing during the first trib. That has completely changed now too. Now the timings are completely like turned on their head. It's something that everyone's got to kind of relearn. I'm just waiting for that Reddit post that's going to have all the timings laid out for every map in a nice, easy, digestible format. Bags, one of the hosts of Troll and HGC, mentioned that he used to have a cheat sheet that he'd have next to his like desk or whatever, so he could just kind of look over for all of his timings. And I feel like I could definitely benefit from something like that now.
Yeah, our team keeps a Google Doc that we just, for each map, we just scroll down and, all right, it's 1:30, let's go.
Because this isn't League of Legends, right? There's not one map that you have to learn inside and out. We've got, I've lost track of how maps, 11 maps, give or take a couple. That's a lot of timings to know. And I know a lot of people have raised this concern that we've got so many maps in the game, it's making everyone jack of all trades, master of none, I guess is probably the term there. So it's hard to know every little in and out for every map. You can just generally know things for most maps, unless you're cavalier guests of the world who spend hours looking at this and analyzing all the timings and like how the rotation should be for every single map in every single situation. So I mean, we've kind of hit the performance-based MMR with a pretty heavy bat so far today, but I did notice that Roz had a little note in here, so maybe I wanted to bring that up before we moved along. So you were saying that you talking about just placement matches, and you're wondering about the purpose of placement matches. Do you think that placement matches maybe should be a thing of the past? You should just start the next season where you previously started off, because that would have fixed your problem coming in here, right? And with this performance-based matchmaking and being able to, rise or fall faster to the place that you should be, that kind of almost takes away the need for placement matches, or at least what the theory of them was in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the purpose, and I don't want to be like an armchair developer and
no, you aren't.
I know what's going on.
That's what podcasts are for.
That's the whole point, yeah. But when they do the placement matches, they remove the certainty factor, and so which I understand why they say they do that, but it means that there's even greater weight placed on your placement matches, and that these 10 matches are going to kind of decide your fate. And at least in the performance or in the placement matches, we don't get to see that number of your performance-based matchmaking. We only see those in the actual ranked games. So I don't know how that affects, and I don't know I don't like what I don't know. So the more information that we can get. So like, I don't know what the alternative system would be, but if we've got this so-called perfect system of finding out our perfect MMR, I don't know necessarily what the purpose of a placement match, or maybe we just have less of them. Maybe not 10, but maybe 5 or something like that.
It feels like there's no unified front for what people think about placement matches, so it'll be interesting to see how Blizzard comes through with this. But we did have some breaking news. Styx in the chat, a friend of the show, actually mentioned that Blizzard has responded, saying that we've finished diagnosing the problem and are currently working on a fix, which, once completed, means that we will be resetting the Hero and Team League records, including placement matches, of any affected accounts. So, Roz, you are in the clear, sir. Bacon, sorry, I know you did your master placements yesterday. You're going to have to do those all over again, bud. But that's probably good news in general. I think that's probably the right way to go about it, so I'm glad that's what they came to. It sucks if you've already done your placement matches. However, it sounds like there was enough variability in those placements that needed to be done, and just the reset was what was required.
I'll gladly do them again.
Second chance at life.
Yeah, stay out of those deeper leagues for you. Sit where you should, right, Roz? Okay, is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we move on to the next segment about our first impressions of Heroes 2.1?
I just wanted to add that I really like the regen globe changes, like you were saying, from a solo lane perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that on like the 2-lane maps, it's a little nerve-wracking, like on Battlefield of Eternity and Braxis, where you've got the 1-man top and then 4 in the bottom. The pressure that places on your team to make sure that you deny the regen globe is pretty huge, because that's twice as much regen going to 4 people. And so when I see my tank not, posturing up and either protecting our globe and getting it, or, defending their globe, like there's a lot of counterplay in there, which is good, I think, but people are going to need to learn that pretty quick.
Yeah, especially with the globe gathering quests too. You can complete those significantly faster, or you can get completely shut out depending on how your team is. I wonder if this is going to adjust even draft strategy in, say, like a Braxis situation where you've got that 4-man lane, if you're doing a 4-1 split, to make sure that you can have a comp that can clear the wave fast and kind of control that middle ground, so you can make sure you get both globes out of the situation. Okay, and on that note, we're going to move along onto our next segment, how we would change Hanzo. Little disclaimer before we start this. I played Hanzo today, and I actually really enjoyed him. I was having a lot of fun with Hanzo, and I feel like once you get to know him a little bit, he's like a good friend. You warm up to him, and he's not so bad. But that being said, he has fallen flat. We've already talked about that a little bit. So we're going to go around the table and see exactly how everybody would change Hanzo to make him a better hero. So let's start with our Overwatch expert, Roz. Roz, I played very minimal Overwatch, so I'm probably one of the least qualified to talk about this, but it sounds like you've done your fair share of Overwatch.
It's been a while, but yeah.
But Hanzo came out with the game, so I'm sure you've had enough experience with Hanzo. So how would you change him to get you more excited about playing him?
Well, let me say what I like about him. I like how, first of all, he I think once he gets like level 4 or 7, he can take merc camps pretty dang quick, which adds a lot of utility to him. I would hate for him to just be this sort of glass cannon, useless ranged character. He can actually play a lot of impact on the map. I like his range. He can play from a very safe distance. I'm going to actually disagree with one of your notes in there, because I actually like that there's a limit on his jump, that it can only go over terrain. I kind of wish that Genji's was like that, rather than just a free-for-all. I do think the cooldown should be reduced, though. But in Overwatch, his scatter arrow will spread if you hit anything, and I kind of wish it would do that here. It'll only split if you hit terrain in Heroes of the Storm. I'm pretty sure that's how it works in Overwatch, where if you hit a hero, it will also split. So maybe make a slight adjustment like that. Maybe you could disable it on minions. It doesn't, that way you do have to be smart with the wave clear. But I think if you are smart and you're aiming for the healer in the back or the mage in the back, and you get a nice scatter arrow shot and spray it into the back sides of the enemy, I think that'd be pretty good. Right now, you not only have to not hit a minion, not hit a hero, you have to find the wall and also aim it correctly to get good scatter arrow value. And then his auto attacks just kind of feel weird unless you build into the quest, which I actually really like the quest. But if you don't go that way, and maybe the comp doesn't allow you to go that way, it just feels kind of weird. So I don't know if maybe getting rid of his auto attacks and maybe like reducing Q cooldown or something would be nice. That way he just feels like, you are pulling the trigger every single time. And this was just kind of a jokey suggestion. I think it'd be kind of cool if he could like actually perch on the terrain and just sort of like stay on the wall, or maybe be on top of your fort and then shoot from there. I don't know. You don't really gain anything from that, but
no melee can attack me now.
Yeah.
Well, that would be cool. You could add some neat like interactions for that. You could maybe give him some extra armor, or maybe like Mystic said, you can put him out of the range of melee by giving him like, you know, like a Z-axis value, right? So he's above everyone else, so you can shoot from there but not be shot at by melee. That'd be kind of a cool way to do it. So Mystic, how about you, bud? How would you change Hanzo?
Well, I got a lot of notes here, so
let's hear them.
The first thing, if you're in the Dragon Strike, which is his double dragon ulti, is you'd be slowed by 20% while you're being hit by it. Now, 20% is not like a whole lot, but it's enough that you get hit by, you know, enough of it that it'd be worth getting hit by an ulti, right? The second thing is I would make Dragon Strike come out 50% faster. As of right now, it's super telegraphed. It's super slow, and yeah, you could get out of it and, you know, do a little dance by the time, you know, it actually starts firing. The next thing I'd do is I would change it. Maybe this, like, it isn't very, doesn't really pay homage to the Overwatch hero itself, but I would make scatter arrows split when they reach maximum distance without hitting a target, because that would allow you to split the arrows without hitting a wall, and it would allow a little bit more versatility with that. And I think, Roz, your idea with hitting a hero and then having it split like that, that's pretty strong. The next thing I would do is change his trait. Instead of 30 seconds, it would be 15-second cooldown. I think it's not a Genji trait, but it can't be too strong. Otherwise, you know, he'd just be jumping over walls and you just literally no melee could hit him. I would make it so his storm bow doesn't have a charge time, and it would just fire at maximum distance every 4 seconds. I think that would make it so he's a pretty good poke hero, and along with his auto attacks that are almost about the same range. That'd be pretty good. And then I would change his sonar arrow, like rework it. It would be an arrow that fire in a straight line. When it hits a wall or an enemy hero, or an enemy, I guess, it would make a pulse, a revealing pulse, and it only has a 10-second cooldown, and it does damage if you hit an enemy target.
So Sonar is a funny one. Have you ever tried either self-casting it or shooting it very close to yourself? You'll shoot it like straight up, and it comes the exact same amount of time to hit like right at your feet. Whereas I'm like, I just want to shoot it at my feet. Why is it taking so long? I gotta say though, comment in chat of the day probably goes to Annalise. She's actually a writer for Trolls GG too. She said her changes would be: first change, delete them; second change, don't bring them back; and third change, drink the tears of Hanzo mains. That's nice and succinct there, and thanks for those comments. I'm seeing a lot of, like, you know, a theme coming along here too, from what Roz and Mystic have been saying here too. But Mystic seems to be taking the more like, we need to fix that Dragon Strike ultimate too, because I guess it's obviously such an iconic ultimate from Overwatch. It just feels like it hits like a wet diaper in this game, and it's a diaper that you see coming too, right? It's so easy to get out of the way. Even a lot of games where the other Hanzo was taking it, I was like, yeah, so what if I'm standing in it? It doesn't really matter, just because the damage just seems to come out so slowly from it as well. Okay, so now we go along to me. So what I do, I would remove Hanzo's auto attacks altogether, which might be a drastic change, but I always thought that his Q and his auto feel kind of clunky going back and forth between the two. What I do is make the Q a lot more spammable, making it on a very short cooldown, so you can just keep pumping out his Qs over and over again. Since he doesn't have an auto attack, you'd have to make up for it somewhere. I also think lowering the cooldown of natural agility and removing the restriction that requires to be over unpathable terrain, and maybe even given an extra charge would be great, because I feel like he should have more mobility. It feels weird that he can jump so high, but only if it's over a building. Like, I don't understand like how that really works. I can see why they want to make it different than Genji, because they don't really like having many heroes with the same abilities. But you know what? Whatever. Like, a jump's a jump. It's not like that fancy. Just give him a jump. Put on lower cooldown, give him a bit more mobility, so he can be like mobile, ranged assassin with his, like, you know, bow and arrow being a lot more of his damage side of it. I also fixed Dragon Strike too. Mystic's got some great thoughts there too, so I don't want to steal his thunder. But I think that's the route that I would go on Hanzo personally. So Blizzard, if you're listening, please maybe take some of our suggestions here and advice. But like I said off the top, I'm actually starting to warm up to Hanzo a little bit. He's a lot of fun. You can actually get a decent amount of damage out with him. Okay, so we're going to move along to what I believe is our second last segment. We're going to do a Mystic Shakedown afterwards. And this is called Music of the Storm. So, Roz, do you want to tell everyone what you're doing with Music of the Storm? Because you've been writing a series of articles on Trolls GG for this.
Yeah. First of all, like Daz said at the beginning, I'm a music educator. I'm a band director. I teach middle school and high school band. I write music for my own band, and also I've written music for various college bands and stuff like that. So, and I also teach music composition to my students, and so it's one of these things that I'm very passionate about is music in video games. Blizzard to me kind of has like one of the best track records of music in their video games. Russell Browder for Hearthstone is just spectacular. And the guys for Here's the Storm are just killing it. I think Glenn Stafford and Jason Hayes are the guys. And a lot of people, when they play this game, and I'll even admit to it sometimes, is I'll turn off the music for the game. But there's some really good stuff in there. And I just want to sort of, I think one of the great things is that this, the music doesn't have an MMR or Merc camp timing or anything like that. It's just fun, cool stuff to talk about in the game that no one can really get upset or angry about. So,
how would you rate like Blizzard's go on musical arrangements and composition compared to other video games? Do you think that it's above what we see in other games?
Blizzard's whole thing, from an aesthetic point of view, has always been about getting the right feel. Like, they've talked about this in depth with Hearthstone, about even just the visuals of creating the very tactile play board and the UI. They put a lot of attention into making the details just right, and how you interact visually and audially plays a big deal into that. So they appreciate that, and so I give them an A+. I think they're one of the best.
Yeah, I think you said it. Attention to detail is what Blizzard seems to be good at with every aspect of the game, and I think they understand that it's not just visuals that complete the experience. The music's an important component of that. I think if they could touch on your other senses as well, like smell, they probably would try to do that too. But that might be a little bit difficult with current technology and such. Yep. So what are you doing with the Music of the Storm series you've been doing?
So I just published chapter 2 a couple weeks ago, and all I'm doing is going through the soundtrack. They released it on iTunes and on YouTube, and you can just go into the game and listen to it. But I do one song per week or per article, and I talk about what's going on in the music, what you could be listening for. And I don't have the score to these. I'm just listening because I know what to listen for, and give you like some historical perspective. What other pieces of music does this sound like? What instruments are you hearing? How are they being used in a way that tells the story that they're trying to tell? And just paying attention to the details that they are very meticulously putting in there. So the first article I did was on The Battle Begins, which is the anytime you listen to an HGC commercial break, that's probably the song you're going to be hearing. And then last week or a couple weeks ago was the music from Cursed Hollow, which is the one we're going to be doing tonight. Yeah,
and after reading your articles too, I feel like I get a new appreciation being someone with the untrained ear to go through these and be like, oh, okay, like that's what they're going for. And it almost makes me feel like I should know a lot of the stuff, maybe not the technical bits behind it, but like the story that you tend to bring forward in the actual musical piece. Be like, oh, that makes much more sense, and you can actually feel it, and you can feel that kind of those emotions as you go through. And I definitely suggest if anyone checks out these articles is to listen to the music as you're reading what Roz puts out there, because you can almost follow along and hear the story. And that's what we're going to try and do today with Cursed Hollow. So do you want to set the scene here before I start the musical piece?
So we're going to be doing Cursed Hollow, and so let's set the scene. So a Cursed Hollow, in the game is this nightmarish sort of forest, and that's what it is. And if you want to make some comparisons, one of the comparisons I make in the article is Sleepy Hollow. If you're a Tim Burton fan or a Danny Elfman fan, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow with the Headless Horseman, that's what brings to mind. A hollow is like literally a hole like in a tree or a decrepit town, and that's what this is. So to when we're composing music for that, obviously we're going to be going with very dark, ethereal, mysterious, brooding types of music. And when we do that, we compose music in a minor key. There are major keys and minor keys. Major is usually used for bright sounding, happy music. And a minor key is used for dark music. And all you have to do is change a few pitches and it becomes minor and dark. Yeah, I guess I'll tell you what we're going to hear first, and then I'll kind of take you through it as we go, and then and we'll get started. So before we get started, when I tell this story, this is the story that I have come up with for what's going on in the music, and this is what I think is happening.
It's canon,
and it's sort of informed by the lore of Heroes of the Storm, where the Cursed Hollow is one of the domains ruled over by the Raven Lord. You gather his tributes in Cursed Hollow, and he's also in charge of the Haunted Mines and the Towers of Doom, where coincidentally the Headless Horseman is the boss on that map. So anyway. But what you're going to hear when we start this tune is just a concert A, the pitch A, right on the middle of the piano is going to just doom, 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 doom. It's going to be very dark and ominous. And when a pitch like that is repeated in a rhythm or a pattern, we call that an ostinato, and it's supposed to give like a sense of drive and urgency. And then on top of that, it's going to build this very ethereal theme in a minor key, and as you listen to it, you're gonna, to me, I imagine us walking into the Cursed Hollow. We hear the root of the chord, that concert A, and those are like the roots of our tree, of the trees in the forest. And then as we build it up, the notes expand and go higher. We start to realize how big and ominous these trees are in the forest, and then we will eventually get to the center of the Cursed Hollow. So I guess we can go ahead and start it, and I'll just try not to talk over it too loud, and we'll pause halfway through, and I'll tell you where.
Sure. Just tell me when. Here we go.
All right, so there's that concert A. It's very ominous. And there's that melody, C, D sharp, F, E, dee da dee da. Those are the roots of our trees. We hear these are only strings. We've got bass cellos in the bottom, and then all the higher strings are coming up on top of it. So you're going to hear some brass voices like the French horn come in, and they're going to make the melody go even higher. Our forest is getting more and more complex and lush. And pause.
Wow,
Right, so,
you feel it really building there too, eh?
Yeah. So we've gone through this winding path of dark, twisted roots that are probably filled with blood or something, and we've made it to the center of the hollow. And I recently watched the Johnny Depp Sleepy Hollow movie, and so this is kind of vividly in my brain. But I imagine us getting to the center of the hollow, and there's the Raven Lord. He's coming out, and he's not too happy that he's been woken from his slumber, and he demands tribute. But at this point, you're going to if you are a Danny Elfman fan, and Danny Elfman is the composer for basically all of Tim Burton's best films, like the original Batman in the 1990s. Edward Scissorhands, Beetlejuice, Big Fish, if you've seen Big Fish. But he has this sort of flavor to him that is just very dark, and he loves to use like upper woodwinds on top of that, like the clarinet. And he just has this very specific flavor. And the composers for Heroes of the Storm, I think, are paying homage to him. It's almost like a copy pasta of Danny Elfman. So we'll hop in here, and all you can hear really is Danny Elfman to me. So here we go.
Let the journey continue.
Yeah. Like, imagine the beginning of Edward Scissorhands here. You hear all the clarinets going, ooh, that's so Danny Elfman. All right, can we pause for 1 second?
Yeah.
All right, so again, we've made it to the center of the Cursed Hollow, and we're sort of amazed by what we're seeing. And like I said, he has all these dark tones underneath, contrasted by very elegant, chimes and glockenspiel or the bells. And so you hear these ding, 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 ding. And so it's something that's very dark and ominous, but something that's also very mystical at the same time. And so now we're about to hear what I call the Raven Lord's theme. And it's just big and boisterous, and he's flying all over the place, just kicking butt and taking names. And it's going to have a couple things going on. You're going to hear what's called counter melody or counter motion. So you're going to hear one melody going in one direction, going up, and you're going to hear another melody going in the opposite direction, coming down. And as those two sounds collide, it creates a sense of momentum and tension. And it's going to pay some homage to like Mars, the Bringer of War by Gustav Holst, which has this if you're familiar with that. But it's this very warlike theme, and I think it's pretty cool what they do here. But anyway, it has the Raven Lord theme, and then it has a counter version of that theme, and then his war theme towards the end. Here we go. All right, here comes his war theme. So that war theme at the end is Mars Bringer of War is probably most notable for being in 5/4. It's a meter that has 5 beats in every measure, and so you feel a pulse of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's what the ending there has. Da 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 da. Da, da, da. And so it has this really offbeat feel, whereas usually music has like 4 beats in a measure, and it's a little bit more symmetrical. When you add that 5th beat, it adds this sense of urgency and uneasiness, and it's just very war-bringing. And so I think that's a pretty direct homage to Mars Bringer of War. But yeah, so that's it. I sort of left out some things that are kind of hard to tell, as we're going through it. But if you check out the article on trolls.gg, I include a lot of video links for comparisons. Like I mentioned, all these Danny Elfman tunes that are being referenced. You can check those out. I also added in some for you music theory buffs, if that's something that interests you. I even go into like what special type of scale this uses, and I show how you create those scales, and I even have some audio, some videos of me performing those scales rudimentally on a piano. You can check those out, and there's all kinds of references in here. There's references to Jaws, there's references to Mars, there's references to Danny Elfman, and so I think that it's really cool that these composers, while we don't hear a lot of what's going on because we've clicked Control M and it's turned off while we're playing the game, there are so many depths of levels of intrigue in Blizzard's games, down to interactivity in all of the Hearthstone play mats, to just really cool bits of, I see what you did there. I love those cheeky sorts of things that composers and artists do, and that's what these guys are. They're artists. So
yeah, it's amazing how in the short span of 5 minutes, a musical piece can take you through so many emotions and tell that story. And as I mentioned earlier too, it's difficult as someone with an untrained ear to pick a lot of that out. And when someone like you goes through these in your articles and just today talking about, talking us through it all, it's almost like I can't believe I didn't see that. And you get this almost like moment. And like I said, I get chills when I listen to this song after hearing a bit more of the story behind it. It's almost like you're watching a movie, like audibly. If audibly is a word. But yeah, it's amazing what you do. I feel like you're uniquely qualified for this too, because not only do you have the musical experience and background, you're also an educator and you also love the game too. So taking all those elements and putting it together really lends to a great series that you're doing. So what can we expect next? What's chapter 3? I'm excited. No, I don't even know what it's going to be.
I was trying to decide. A lot of people were asking for some Overwatch music and like comparing the Overwatch music to Heroes of the Storm music and how Overwatch is being implemented into Heroes of the Storm. So I might take a look at that, like Hanamura. I was also looking at Blackheart's Bay, so that might be on the chopping block here.
Cool. Well, Roz, thanks for taking us on that journey, and look forward for the journeys to come with chapter 3 and forward. So if you're looking for more of Roz's stuff, you can check out trolls.gg. He's a regular author there. Just look for anything that's Music of the Storm. We've got the first 2 chapters that have already been done. We're going to be seeing more in the following weeks to come. So Mystic, you know what that means it's time for, right, bud?
Oh, yeah.
It's time for your shakedown.
Mystic, I require service of you. I come to you as a friend, asking you to shake down this situation for me.
Take it away, Mystic.
Okay, so for this week, I'm going to talk about the topic of aggressive versus defensive in this game. So, let me add one thing here. Okay, so there are two playstyles that people generally can fall into, while the players in the higher echelons of Master can play both. So there is the offensive playstyle, and there is the defensive playstyle. So offense, now there are many categories in each of these, but I'm not going to really go into that today. So we have the pure offensive playstyle, which you go hyper aggressive, you try to take, whether it be your opponent's lives or objectives, right? So they just keep taking, they just don't let up, they keep going, and they just keep taking until they take the core and win. Now, as opposed to the opposite side of this playstyle, we have the pure defensive playstyle, which is you defend until your opponents make a mistake, and then you counterattack them and take something, and then you go back to being defensive and then wait for your opponent to make another mistake. Now, this game, along with a lot of the other MOBAs, requires both offensive and defensive to be successful. Whether contesting objectives, where if your team composition is more like, hey, we've designed this team comp so that when they dive us, then we can play defensive really well and then counterattack. So that's a more defensive style composition. Or you have a heavy dive composition where you go in, you take out the high priority target, and then now their team doesn't have their damage or doesn't have their healer, and then you just tear the rest of the team apart. Now, even though each of these compositions are tailored to, a certain style, you can still play both. Like, you can still play the defensive style team comp offensively, and there are times where you have to force objectives or among other things to stay in the game. So keeping a lead, if you play pure offensive, there are times where you get caught out, and since you're so far out, you die, and maybe the rest of your team dies, and you lose the lead that you have from playing offensively. So thus, it is higher risk to play offensively. Now, if you're behind and you keep playing defensive and your opponent doesn't make a mistake, then you're just going to stay behind the entire game. So it is a less risk, less reward kind of play style there. Now, for trading structures and defending structures, this type of these two things are really integral to that, because if your opponent is taking your keep, then you probably want to defend that rather than just have, your entire team take their outer fort. But you can play both sides and send 4 people back and keep your specialist on the fort and then defend your keep with 4, because you do have defender's advantage, and keep your specialist just taking down the fort so you can get the extra experience. So you kind of need both, and I feel like people fall into one or the other, but don't forget that the other one still exists.
Cool. So I've got a question for you, Mystic.
All right.
One thing, I've been playing a lot of tank recently for whatever reason. I don't usually play tank, but as a lot of people know, the tank is usually the initiator in any sort of team fight scenario. And a lot of times what I'll find happens is you'll have two teams posturing, right? You got maybe like two almost defensive styles kind of clashing, or maybe that aggressive one is waiting for their opening. What, as a tank player, what should you be looking for to like make that initial engage? Like, are you looking for someone to make a mistake? Are you waiting for key abilities come out? Are you waiting for everyone to have like ideal positioning or maybe bad positioning on the other side? Like, what kind of cues do you look at right off the bat? Because it's something that I often struggle with, and a lot of impatience I feel like comes into play if it lasts for any length of time.
So if you're a tank and both teams are kind of posturing right now, it really depends on your team composition, but generally what you're looking for is somebody to be out of position. So that's like the more defensive play style, right? So you find someone out of position and you take that initiative. You can do that, or you can wait for them to engage, them to be impatient. Because like if your comp, like I said, it was more tailored to defending your backline, then you can kind of go in and then just lure them into your team. you could do either one of those. Wait for them to engage, or like pseudo engage and then lure them into your team. Now for the offensive one, it's more if your entire team is like built around dive, in which case you just want to go just super hard onto them, and you don't really need to wait for someone to be out of position. Like that would be the ideal situation, but let's just say your highest priority target is in the back. Second, maybe not as high a priority target is in the middle, and then they have their tanks in the front, right? You could just go for that second, second fish there and just dive really hard and kill them and take their team apart from there. So it really depends on your team composition.
Maybe getting a little off topic too, but in terms of coordinated damage, one thing that a lot of people, like a lot of teams, especially in uncoordinated play, struggle with is making sure that you focus a certain target. In that like kind of aggressive play style like that you just mentioned, if you're like just running past, maybe there's two targets that might be an option. Maybe you've talked about it a little bit in the past in chat, but like what's the best thing to do to like follow the cues of like who do you follow the cue of to like choose who you're doing damage to, because someone might have a different opinion than the next person on the list.
Generally, if you're a damage dealer, just blast whoever the tank has initiated on, even if it's most likely their tank, because that's the only person CC'd, right? If you try to run past them and try to attack like another target that maybe isn't CC'd or isn't out of position in the slightest, then you're just going to go really deep and they are going to counter initiate on you, and since you're a squishy, you're probably going to die. So either that, or if you can for sure, or if you're playing a dive hero, if you can for sure get a kill on someone, then be my guest. Feel free to do so as long as you don't die. Or if you're a dive hero, and that's kind of your job, you're diving, right? But generally, you just hit whoever is the highest priority target within your field of influence, I guess. It's just like this circle around your hero. It's like, this is what you can do in this area. Just hit the highest priority target in that area. Unless, your team is just like, all right, guys, we have to kill Stitches, and then we could just go onto their backline. In which case, if your team has decided on that via voice chat or whatever, right, then that is probably who you're going to go for.
How about you, Roz? You're a captain of a chair league team. Do you guys tend to go towards the aggressive divey style or the more defensive style when you're playing?
That's a funny question because we've played around with both. When we first started as a team, we were the hyper-aggressive type of team. We played a lot of Kerrigan, played a lot of Karazim, a lot of ETC, and we just roamed and roamed and roamed. It kind of got us into this rut, though, where we turned into squirrels, where if we saw somebody on the mini-map, it turned into... Someone's showing. Let's go. It didn't matter if we were missing soak or whatever, and it turned into this chasing kind of game, and you don't always get the kills that way. So we shifted our attention towards get those when you can, but make sure that those kills turn into an immediate structure or an immediate camp or something that turns into getting something done on the map. So it's a little bit of a mixture of both.
Cool. Well, I think it's a pretty good shakedown, Mystic. I gotta reevaluate how we decide to do aggressive versus defense, because I think we were kind of tending towards more the aggressive side being the preferred play style, but I guess there's a time and a place for both sides, and be able to identify that and look at your team comp and decide where to make those decisions. Those choices as a group are very important. So that being said, I think we're going to wrap up the show here. If you're listening, please stick around because we're going to stream some after show games. Troll and HGC isn't going to be immediately after us, so we're going to take up that time slot with some after show games with viewers. So if you're interested, and this just goes in general, if you want to hang out with us in game, you can /join TrollsGG in game, or you can head over to our Discord server, trolls.gg/Discord. All the information's there for invite links and everything to get into our Discord server. But that being said, thanks everybody for listening to Nexus Trolls, a Heroes of the Storm podcast. We stream this live on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/TrollsGG, every week on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. So Roz, if anyone wants to find out more about what you do, where can they find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Rozai Hots, and you can find me on Twitch at Ro_Zai. And you can find me at TrollsGG, writing articles for the gang.
Well, how about you, Mystic? Where can people find you?
You can find me at Mystic Shroud on Twitter.
And LiQuiud can be found at LiQuiudGG. It's LiQiuDGG on Twitter. Definitely a good person to follow as well. And if you're looking to follow me, it's at DazHots. I'd like to always thank our Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/trollsgg. If you like the show and you're looking for a way to support us, you can definitely do it over there. It definitely helps. Thank you so much for all those that have supported us in the past. You can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you happen to find your podcasts online. You can likely find us there. You can visit our website, trolls.gg/TheNexusTrolls, to watch this and past shows, along with past video streams, which can also be found on our YouTube channel. For announcements about the show in general, here's the Storm News. You can follow us on Twitter at TheNexusTrolls. And like I mentioned before, you can always hang out with us in-game by /joining TrollsGG, all one word. Finally, if you need to get in touch with us, oh, sorry, I couldn't say that cough until after the outro, which is like 3 more seconds. Finally, if you need to get in touch with us, the best way is by email at TheNexusTrolls@TrollsGG. Roz, thanks for coming on the show. Mystic,
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for hosting as usual. Everybody, thanks for watching. Have a great week.